Guys, good morning, good morning. Thank you for joining us. Happy Monday. Hope you're good. Hope you had a rested weekend. I'm just going to wait for a few of you to jump in and see if, let me see if I can refresh it on Facebook now. See who is here. Let me see. It might take a bit, a few minutes to show up, but let me try one more time. Okay, I can see something loading. Okay, guys, so anyway, wow, if you paid attention to the price action with what happened over this weekend, you will be, some of you will not be surprised, because we did mention that we thought it might be just a temporary bounce, but there was, some momentum for Bitcoin with several developments that help to boost sentiment, which I discussed on the previous Zoom. But as expected, if it didn't break that, if it didn't go up to that 4,200, then it's more likely that this could be a short-term, bullish movement, and it's not really much. I mean, as you could, last time I checked, Bitcoin was about $3,040 something. The market cap down to 67 billion, and the market cap industry down to 129 billion. Now, things to know about this particular time. There had been some movement by whales, movements of funds, and there is speculation that it may have been some manipulation there, but this was to be expected. It does have to overcome some key levels in order to prove to us this is really, a truly bullish move. And we've been looking at the volumes in the market, and as expected, it didn't hold out. And one big clue we need to recognize is that before we see the market bottoming out, first, and we have to see what's happening regarding real demand in the space. One of those things we look at is volume, to see if it's just been manipulated short by sellers, whether they're looking to trap buyers, making up a bullish trap out there, get people excited. They do it, it's timed to coincide around positive news that comes out. Now, there's always been some news and developments throughout that have come up, but only certain at certain times pushed. It's been used as to drive sentiment. So, in my opinion, we're still in a bear market. Still, the bear have control, in my opinion. And it will be driven down lower if not just Bitcoin, but crypto, some of the top 20 projects, even though they're now, time when we see them positively impacted, Bitcoin's doing well, plus some news, some that affect industry as a whole, but mostly to do with the ads. So if there's any good news regarding their roadmap, they hit a target, increase their collaboration partnerships, something that helps to add value and grow their infrastructure and systems, something fundamental to that. Unless we see that, overall, seeing where we are, it's still, a position which is bearish right now. So it's still between that range, is within that zone where for it to be considered, for it to be down, it needs to come back down. So, then, the best, that, um, um, the more likelihood, you know, me, and, you know, what we shall see, and, and, uh, and, was up to, and, we can, we need to see that, um, to give us more confirmations before we can keep also some whales are taking advantage of this particular in the market. Remember, understand Hello. Hello, I'm not sure if you guys can hear my sound. Hello. 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 If you can hear me, we're having technical difficulties, guys. Thank you very much for your patience. Just making sure I'm basically restarting and going back into the Zoom. I'm not sure if you guys can hear me. And okay, let's try this again. I hope your day is going as you know, plain more smoother than mine is right now. Let me see. Okay, let's see. Mm-mm-mm. Might be. Mm. Give me a couple of moments, guys, if you can hear me. Thanks for your patience. It's still loading up here. Mm-mm-mm. Okay, should be able to go in. Okay, if you're okay, just give me. Okay, it may take a bit longer for you guys to see me jump on, but where was I? Was speaking in regards to Bitcoin and wells in particular. Okay, something's coming up now, so I can jump on. Okay. Anyway, whilst I wait for this to be sorted, you know, the fears that we have in regards to wells manipulating the market, and you know, just find ways that be able to shake you know, weaker hands. And hang on a moment, something, I'm being distracted by the browser. It's finally popping up now. I'm trying to jump on the link. Okay. Okay, so what was interesting anyway in regards to the whales movements, I mentioned about well, this is speculated to be the Ethereum movement by Binance Exchange. However, there's on Bitcoin, there's about 10 of 100 addresses that ended up having more Bitcoin at the end of the month. And then there was also something, the timing of it as well. I mean, it is a bit suspicious, but it's nothing new. This has been you know, the norm. They look to use certain developments in the market to be able to sort of trap buyers or sellers. So, for example, if you know, sellers are looking to take advantage of particular news, they would trap, they would spike, they would send the price up and give the false impression of you know, a bullish movement, but really it's a dead cat bounce, and trap the buyers, and there'll be, you know, there would be a continuation of the bearish move, the, you know, actual dominant trend, which is bearish. So regardless of what happens anyway, you know, there is consensus in the market that Bitcoin will appreciate over the long term. It will catch up with the intrinsic developments. Sorry, the intrinsic price will go up in line with the value of the developments that have been poured in, the investments that have been poured into the market overall. And so, yeah, over long term, we are optimistic in regards to Bitcoin and crypto space. It will be worth, in my opinion, in its trillions at some point, and it will give the US fiat, US dollar, a run for its money. And yeah, Bitcoin almost worth $1 million, and Ripple almost worth $10,000 potentially. And I have to say though, with Bitcoin, the rise in transactions that's happened per day, and it has been the only project with transaction fees that has experienced these increases every day since April 2018. But I've got to say, a big majority of that has been with Veriblock, which is a mechanism for securing other blockchains using Bitcoin, using the Bitcoin blockchain. So, this is something which we definitely need to see sustained and coming from individual, not just from Veriblock, but from individual investors and different stakeholders getting involved to help raise its, to help increase its network effect, and help it appreciate and for it to come from diverse sources rather than a few different sectors, different areas. So I'll sort of break it down, why I think, why I'm super optimistic and why I think that we're not seeing the full picture yet. So if you look at the grassroots interest in Bitcoin in particular, the number of people signing up to meet up, do conferences, engagement, social media, you name it. Like if you see what's happening on the ground, meetups have increased. The number of ID verified wallets have increased. The chatter, the sentiment, it may not be overwhelmingly positive right now, but there's still, this expectation that the bear market will end at some point, and we will see Bitcoin, especially after the halving that's expected in May 2020 to go up over time. And the network hash rate has increased significantly since December the 21st as well. And that could be attributed to mining, an increase in mining activity as well. So there's optimism there. They'd be investing the costs that you normally incur mining. You don't get the returns for quite some time, especially in a bear market. And some miners have actually been making a loss, but they stay with the expectation that the bear market will reverse, it will end, and the good times will come back again. And historically, in the 10 years of Bitcoin's growth, Bitcoin's performance, it actually, miners have actually been rewarded for their patience. It has worked out in a positive fashion, but there has been some very difficult times. That is part and parcel of being an investor and miner. So let me see if this now works. I'm gonna try one more time. If not, you may not be able to see me for the rest of the for the part. Let me try again. But yeah, so definitely a clue there. Was it almost 1 million Ethereums or Ethers worth over $134 million being on the move is definitely no coincidence. It's definitely, I think, in my opinion, it's related to the Ethereum hard fork coming up. So I did mention before the St. Petersburg upgrade and the Constantinople. So for those that are not aware, the Constantinople hard fork is meant to help upgrade the Ethereum network and make it more scalable. So that's changing the fee structure, the rules that the economic rules that it is governed by, and so on. And also the Ethereum mining rewards will drop from 3 ethers to 2 ethers. And also the St. Petersburg one is going to help in regards to that as well. Meant to roll back a few a previous upgrade from the testnet as well. So you do have support in the crypto space. Exchanges like Binance, Kraken, Huobi, Coinbase. They have announced that they will support the Constantinople hard fork. So if you guys are looking to take advantage of that, and you have these accounts with these exchanges, then you can do that. And yeah, it's interesting to see how that will come out at the other end, as long as there's no delays. That is, if there's another delay, I do expect Ethereum to take a knock in price wise temporarily. So yeah, moving on, Mercedes, they've come out with some good news regarding their prototype blockchain project they're doing with an American partner, Certis, and they're focused on having consistent documentations of contracts in the supply chain. Now, one of the big areas in this space, I mean, we had said before, blockchain supply chain management is it's a marriage, it's a match made in heaven for supply chain management for major reasons. And Mercedes have recognized in regards to finding ways to increase transparency. Remember, these supply chains are they're super complex, especially if you're a major company, automobile company. Remember, they have millions, okay, I'm exaggerating now, but literally thousands of not moving parts, but thousands of components, thousands of parts in order to put cars together and then to ship them around the world, and making sure they do tests to make sure quality control and so on. So blockchain is amazing fit in regards to streamlining that process, increasing transparency, holding suppliers to account, and making sure, more importantly, that contracts with different parties are actually compliant, and that they are met in a satisfactory manner. So working conditions, environmental protection, safety, even business ethics as well, these all come together on the blockchain, on the supply chain, and trying to find a way to map these out, to have them organized and laid out in a way that is fair to all parties, and help to increase, to foster trust between these parties. And collaboration is so important, where especially if you have multiple suppliers, and if there's certain things that have been outsourced, you're basically putting trust in other parties to meet the standards and qualities that you expect for yourself and for your customers. So that's been one of the main challenges for businesses, industries, where supply chain management is very crucial to how they operate, and whether they succeed or fail long term. And modernizing supply chain management is the next big move, is the next best thing. Moving to the digital world hasn't been easy. There's still some companies out there that use legacy systems, the way they do their operations. Some of them still even use pen and paper. It's still old-fashioned ways of keeping track of different moving parts. That's not going to cut it in this day and age, right? And there's more and more scrutiny from their clients, customers, and different stakeholders, and holding them to a higher standard, higher accountability is there, and then voting with their feet, with their dollars, and the pressure is on to keep streamlining, increase efficiencies, cut down costs, boost profit margins while still being ethical as ethical as they can be. So, they are testing this with their suppliers and partners, and the feedback so far is good.
And they do, expect that this will literally revolutionize their, supply processes, and that it will add value over the long term, and in different ways. It will have ripple effect. And the competitors are watching this very closely as well. They need to adapt and find ways that will be able to keep them being competitive and providing value to their customers too. And so, that word transparency in the supply chain, it is going to be the bedrock. It really is going to be one of those, traceability as well. And that level of openness is not is not luxury. It's a necessity for these companies, for these different industries that rely on making sure, like, especially where safety is concerned with the automobile industry, that they say they consider it as a priority, and they're helping to foster, to use technology to help them, make improvements in that area. And with the food industry, when we speak about safety, we're talking in terms of toxicology, in terms of making sure the food that we consume, that we eat, is safe to do so. And there is a way of holding different parties to account if something goes wrong, if things are not labeled correctly, and someone has allergy, and they can obviously sue them. There's damages that would be awarded and whatnot. But I think most people will agree prevention is better than cure in this case. We would prefer that person to be alive, rather than getting $1 million and they're dead. It's better to have them alive, and or not even be harmed in any way, not go to hospital and face all these extra medical bills. So it is truly profound, the implications for all these different industries using blockchain for their supply chain management is profound. I mean, it speaks, the stats speak for themselves. The evidence is very clear in terms of the advantages to be had in, and how they adapt it to their own industry to make it work for them is important, and it can be adapted. That's the beauty of it. And storage of documentations and contracts is extremely important in this industry. Well, in any industry, I'd like to argue, but having them all, for different third parties, all parties to know exactly which parts came from where, who's responsible for what, who, gave the go-ahead, quality inspections, quality control, all of that is important. And it will help so many people in different ways, and helping them to raise the what do you call it, the expectation that technology is helping to have a world that's a lot more safer. It's it costs less, and this will all be going back to the pockets of the of companies like Mercedes. They will end up sustaining this over the long term, because it just makes sense, and it's not affecting any, as long as it doesn't harm or affect anyone, that there's no detrimental consequences to that. Simply, they do not have to cut corners. They do not have to resort to certain unethical things in order to make profits. They can actually have efficiency. They can have safety. They can have, all of these good things without having to compromise standards. So that's with Mercedes. And then if you remember, way back in I think it was last year September, Porsche it's another German car maker. They also increased investments in blockchain related startups in order to get access to new technology, business models, and new ideas, and so on. So also Japan as well, they start something, a proof of concept, and they're looking to develop a blockchain-backed traceability system. It basically allows buyers and sellers to record transaction details about supply chains through a smartphone app. So, this is amazing stuff. Obviously, it's not been priced in right now, but again, this is why I keep saying that as long as we keep seeing this, level of adoption and usage in any way, shape, or form. So if these businesses are finding that there's advantages and applying it, it becomes more and more acceptable, not only for them, but it does help to change. It does help to foster this culture. It does help to um, find ways that will increase benefits and advantages to different parties. And I think that will actually end up speaking more, volumes. That will actually be more helpful with the everyday, situations that people have. And, if they're looking to buy a car next time, or if they shop in Walmart or Trader Joe, or wherever they go, at some point we're going to see more and more of these companies within these industry look to open up, be transparent about their processes, and say, hey, and engage them as well, and say, download this app, download our app, and you'll be able to scan, a barcode of a product, even, scan the next car that you're looking to buy, and you'll be able to see how your car was made, like which parts came from where, if you're interested in certain parts of, the I don't know if you'd be interested in how the engine was made, and what particular things it had, or what made it so special, or whatever your interest may be. Everyone's in terms of safety, that is definitely going to be a major thing for most people that buy vehicles, in terms of its cost, the usage, and how efficient it uses fuel, and so on. That's going to be another major thing people will be looking at. So safety, costs, and even what like certain USPs, unique selling points, that each manufacturer, each company would have, the reason why they're better than the rest. That will be, they'll be able to write their own story. Their narrative will be around, this is why we're great at this, this is how it will benefit you. It really will help. That level of transparency, it will put customers, clients, third party suppliers, third parties involved within the supply chain. That will definitely help to put people at more ease, give them more confidence to be able to transact, to be able to do more business with that particular company. So I do believe Mercedes-Benz are definitely, another sign. It's where we're going with this technology. I definitely see more adoption coming from these major companies that, frankly speaking, cannot afford to go on with the status quo. They have to always continuously look for ways they can cut costs without cutting ethics, and look for look towards technology to help drive efficiency and changes in different ways that benefits all their stakeholders. That's the key. It's not just becoming the issue of, the bottom line rules all like it used to be, 20, 30 years ago or 50 years ago. It's now, there's a lot more care, there's a lot more emphasis placed on transparency, protection for customers, and customers are becoming empowered. You only have to look at reviews, the way things are set up. The systems online systems and platforms are giving us the ability to, communicate globally with each other, so we can leave reviews, or like one big news story of a car blowing up, or there was previous stories about cars manufacturers that had to do a recall for certain models, and with that exposure, that negative publicity, it actually causes these companies to actually take a proactive approach next time and make sure that their safety, quality control is top notch, and look to prevent a problem rather than having to deal with the outcome of any potential fallout and backlash. You've seen you guys have seen the power of what a single Twitter can do. Yeah. And also the fact that a lot of companies, a lot of customers, there's now a big shift in terms of like people voting with their feet, people voting with their dollars. There's a lot more, it's almost like we're aware of our power, and how we'll be able to pressurize and scrutinize these big corporations and manufacturers, into them for them to even consider revising their existing policies or whatever that may be. We have that kind of collective power to influence and bring change. So I think the way things are shifting towards the consumer having more power is brilliant. And with blockchain technology, that's only going to get better, in my opinion. When you look at the how this is benefiting millions of people overall, I just basically think it will make that everyday experience for us a little more seamless, a little less. A little more stress-free, and that's the whole point. Is this going to make our lives easier? Is this going to make our lives better? That's really what we care about. Is this going to help our family, our friends, our society? And if they can ask questions, if they have answer to those questions and it's a yes, then they have a very strong argument, a strong basis, and I think that's what will help to drive demand at the end of it. So also on top of that, Accenture, there was something that on top of that as well, MasterCard, Amazon, Accenture, they've partnered up as well to do something called the circular supply chain. It basically allows customers to make more sustainable choices about what they buy. This is the part that I love the most. Okay, so just imagine this, that as consumers, we are able to find out who the producers are, and we're able to tip them. We can directly reward them for their choices in their production, incentivize them to do whatever good things that they're currently doing. And this is due to the fact that if we have digital identity management and blockchain technology working together in order to trace these producers, and we'd be able to even if they wanted to put their name besides their the name of their farm or whatever, we'd be able to say, hey, hey Tracy, your coffee's amazing, and I think you're doing a great job. It tastes this and that, like whatever you're feeling with me. And then I'm sending you a tip of $10, $50. Like everyone has different amounts, or the fact that we can do that, we can encourage the small suppliers, the mom and pops, the small farmers, that want to be more efficient and eco-friendly, that want to do the sort of sustainable farming practices, manufacturing practices that they know will be more environmentally friendly and sustain human beings in a positive way, without harming anything and anyone around. any animals, planet, any aspect of that without doing further damage. And this actually also backed up in some research and studies that was done, that almost 2/3 of Americans do want frictionless online shopping experience. Um, and they also want to support more efficient and eco-friendly farming practices. Now, the problem is we don't have, even with this technology, we actually don't have more transparency and access to, how these farmers are making things, creating things, and how, just how things are made or who makes them. And so imagine this, like, just the fact that even over 1 billion people still, they don't have any sort of form of recognized identity. So if you have blockchain technology come in and help to directly put together the consumer, the clients, and putting them in touch with the small producers, going back, and finding, how throughout the supply chain things have been, created and moved and whatnot. That is the way. That's literally the way to change, to drive real social and environmental change, right? So, we need to put, well, they don't have to put names next to it, but we need to put um, real human beings in touch with us, because right now it's like you can pick up things in stores, forecourts and whatnot, but you don't know where that meat has come from, really. I mean, even if they write it on the labels, you don't know the love that has gone into these veggies that have been grown. You don't know the backstory. You don't, if you don't want to, that's fine. But there are some people that really care about the welfare, and to make sure that their food is right, that their food is healthy, and that it's, that the livestock has been well cared for and, treated humanely. There's more and more interest in this, and people are becoming more proactive, and demanding more transparency on the beginning, the beginning part of the supply chain. So we're talking about the producers and manufacturers. So this is really important, and Accenture is on the right line with this, and the fact that they're doing this in store, that, with its partners, they're working on in-store web and app-based implementations. um, so if you have a unique digital identifier and you can just scan it, and that item is registered to the people who produced it, that's incredible. That gives you more power in a way, because now that this is legit, this is, from this particular person who did this, this particular food or this particular item or whatever that may be. For example, if you wanted to buy a pair of clothes, I found out recently that just to get, have jeans or tops or whatever created, that it takes literally thousands of liters of water. And so if you wanted to see, okay, you wanted to see the origins of that supply chain, you wanted to see who made it, you wanted to see if they've been paid well, treated well, and, that there's been no costs cut, or, toxic chemicals used or not, just so the products are cheaper and whatnot. Then you'd be able to say, see who produced them, and you'd be able to make sure the tip, the digital money that you pay them, actually goes right into their pockets. So you're actually helping families and communities be directly empowered, and you're making sure that the money goes straight to them. And so this isn't just going to benefit big corporations in terms of efficiencies and lower costs and, increase, like in terms of marketing, it really does give them a good look, I guess, because they're, making sure that they're differentiating themselves in the market and saying, hey, we could be trusted. Hey, we're the good people. We're going by the book, and so on. And it's really important, empowering if we're going to make a real change, I think we definitely need to find ways to go back directly to the people that make our food, make our products. Even with cobalt, a precious mineral, a precious metal that is used, for component parts in a mobile phone and in our devices. I think the largest amount is back in Congo, in Africa. Um, and for us to put blockchain technology on that, to have their supply chain management, from the miners all the way to the retailers that sell these phones and whatnot. If we have a way of making sure that cobalt was mined ethically, and that the local communities benefiting from it, and that there's no exploitation going on and so on, if that could be done, I think that will be a game changer for not just Africa, not just emerging markets elsewhere, but for communities overall, and as for the consumers, for ourselves, the end user. We will be so much more happier and more confident knowing that our money, we're not enabling bad behavior. We're not encouraging, we're not just blindly buying things and ignoring the consequences. We are making sure we take active roles in our individual ways to make sure that we're doing the right thing by all, and by future generations too. Either way, we're all going to be impacted. One way and another. So, this is amazing stuff, because having digital solutions will actually help to increase, the accessibility, traceability, and I definitely see in terms of increased efficiencies for the businesses, and the money will come, the profits, the margins will increase, because they're doing things in a way that's sustainable for all parties, and it will increase trust in different areas with different stakeholders. That's going to be the key long term, in my opinion. That level of collaboration and transparency is not a choice anymore. It's a necessity for them to be sustainable long term, for people to trust that brand. That brand loyalty, I think, will be helped, driven by technology, and holding companies to account, and rewarding producers and farmers that do things in the right way, not cutting corners, and so on. I definitely think supply chain management is, I expect to hear more and more big companies coming out with their own blockchain projects that will allow them to take advantage of it. So in other developments, Japan, remember, so just recently JP Morgan came out with their own stable coin, their own internal permission blockchain, and a token that's redeemable by $1. So this is slightly different. But again, this is in a way to be expected. Japan has decided to come out with a national digital currency called J-Coin Pay. And you have something like 60 of these Japanese financial institutions coming out to work together, launch a digital currency platform next month. And it will be using smartphones to do this. So payment services using QR codes. So it will launch on the iPhone and Android on the 1st of March. And basically, they're getting together. This is all to be expected, by the way, because back in September, there was a group of Japanese banks that said they were going to launch a new national digital currency in time for the Tokyo 2020 Olympics. And this project does have the support of the Japan's central bank and regulators. And that for each J-Coin Pay, it will be exchanged at a 1-to-1 rate with the yen. So 1 yen, 1 J-Coin Pay, 1 J-Coin Pay, 1 yen. And it has support there. And basically, it will allow customers to make their payments, send and receive transfers, and perform other financial transactions on their smartphones. Um, and they will be able to do this for free anytime and anywhere, to move their money, Jcoin Pay accounts, and their between their deposit accounts and Jcoin Pay accounts. And crucially, this will also be available to non-Japanese customers visiting Japan. And they'll do this through other QR code providers outside Japan. Now, they're basically the Japanese government. We already know they accepted the tender of Bitcoin. They have been for quite some time. But the fact that they're doing this now, and they're looking to double the amount of customers using cashless payments as well, is no surprise at all. And it's not just banking, it's not just these financial institutions. It will be retail companies, restaurants also getting involved. And this in time to coincide with the 2020 Olympics next year is a perfect way to showcase Japan's modern culture. And Japan is one of the stellar reputations it has is for technology. So the fact that they're forward thinking and that they creating ways to take advantage of this space with the Jcoin Pay, it definitely helps. However, having said that, it would have been easy just to adopt Bitcoin, or have ways that they'd be able to increase its adoption, having more educational resources, having more ATMs, having different structures in place, so people could be encouraged to adapt and use more and more existing cryptos, rather than create their own. So again, this reminds me a little bit of JP Morgan's coin, because it's really to do with having some level of control by making sure that it's to be used in this way. But again, like I said, in this industry, you have a lot of fragmentation and diversity. You'll have different niches, the different players involved, and I believe there's room for all. And there's no right way of going about solving different problems, as long as it's bringing value to people. That is what matters at the end of the day, and that is doing no harm. So I think overall it's a good thing. Anything that helps to drive adoption, and this casts a positive light on the industry as a whole anyway, because it does encourage people to get involved and teach themselves, and be able to use these mechanisms to make their life easier. But because it's the Japanese central bank, and because these these are major players, Bank of Toyama, Shinsei Bank, Ogaki, and Japan Post Bank, and so on. These are definitely like they're big players in the Japanese market, and this is another sign to the to their consumers that this technology isn't going anywhere. They just keep finding ways to adapt it to their markets. And again, it's a sign. To me, it's just another stamp of approval that helps to legitimize the industry. So I think that's a great thing either way, and especially if they can show people how easy this is to use. But in my opinion, overall, like, the whole point of cryptos is to get away from the central banks, is to get away from traditional banks and their control, their mechanisms to manipulate markets and whatnot. So again, everyone will do what's right for them, and do expect more I did mention this before as well when I was speaking about JP Morgan and what its competitors may do in response to that. I definitely see more central banks. I definitely see more, you know, there's a mechanism where other banks lend to other banks and transact and collaborate with data and information as well. I definitely think there will be a ripple effect either way. That they're going to come out with their own, whether they're going to be coming together to do these consortiums, to do these collaborations with other banks, or if they don't want to get involved with their competitors, they would be jumping on a different service provider like Ripple or another third way. But this is definitely to be expected, and yeah, it's interesting to see Japan is always never failing to lead the way with tech, revolutionary tech is concerned. They're always at the forefront of it. Yeah, so and then to add to that, um, there was something else as well. Oh yeah, Australian financial regulators trialing blockchain technology as well in regards to automating reporting of cross-border transactions by institutions. So again, definitely expect more banks, regulators, more institutions to find ways to be able to have this integrated within their own structures, within their own operations. Because yeah, the advantages speaks for itself. So I think we've gone over time. Sorry for the technical delays. Hope you are I hope you're having a good Monday so far, and yeah, just stay calm. Don't get too excited until we see confirmations in the market. Right now, it's still stuck within that range that I mentioned, but just watch out. If it drops beyond $3,600, then yes, the bearish outlook becomes stronger. And if it goes beyond 4,200, okay, we're like, all right, now we need to see the volumes being sustained and see if that's a real, a real change going on. But again, wait for confirmations before going crazy. Again, it's not financial advice, but look to have a bigger vision, a bigger perspective on this overall. And again, it depends. If you're a trader and looking to make gains in the short term, this volatility does help you. If you're an investor, long-term investor, this really doesn't matter to you either way, especially if you're dollar cost averaging. And if you're a miner, you know, historically after every halving and every every time it's been corrected by 70, 80, 90% so far for the last 10 years of Bitcoin's existence, it's actually died over 300 times and it still goes on to make higher highs. So, but where we are right now, it is the longest bear market in its history. And so all the developments that have currently happened especially over the bear market, is something that differentiate what's happened over the previous 8 years. Like the last 2 years alone, a lot more awareness, a lot more developments have occurred, sometimes at breakneck speed. So this time, with it being a bit more, I think people will be a bit more sober, but more cautious. The industry's gaining more legitimacy. It's becoming more mature. The types of players that are coming into the industry they have expectations that are realistic, and in it for the majority of them, looking to invest for the long term, especially where we are this price level in Bitcoin. This is the point where people will have to decide, instead of trying to catch falling knives and trying to guess what the bottom will be, people are coming up with different strategies in order to make gains in the short term, medium term, and long term. And again, it all goes back to your risk profile and how you allocate your assets. and what you decide to do overall. And this is something that's personal to you. But yeah, take on board all of the information, data, intelligence, development that's out there, and formulate something that's going to work for you, that right by you, and that you can literally sleep at night and be at ease knowing that you've done your homework and you've done your diligence and you're comfortable. You know, this is the amount that you're willing to lose, and this is the amount you're willing to put up. And these are, you know, the goals that you have set in place. And just make decisions based on logic rather than emotion. And trust me, if the price goes down to you know, that 3,000 level, and then 2,000, 1,000, you just watch the FUD, watch the craziness that will come out. You know, the pervading fear that will be the, basically it will reflect despair. And that's one of the key you know, the key stage of the market cycle. Before we have optimism return, before we have confidence, and you know, before we have a reversal, expect, you know, if it does follow those sentiments, if it does follow the predictions and some of the analysis out there that show we're still in a bear market, and you know, if it continues to uh, fail to break resistance at certain points, then you know, the default position would be okay. The bears will still be in control and may drive it even lower. So just be fully aware of the overall situation with the market. I do believe there's great things ahead of it. We're still waiting on what do you call it, the regulators' decisions in regards to, you know, the proposals, whether they're going to be accepted, the ETFs and the futures that are settled by Bitcoin. And just, you know, just continue to stay engaged and connected to this space. And I for sure will be looking out to see if there's any other developments that may look to give a counter argument, a different perspective of where the market might be going. But certainly from what I can see, we have to, before we get excited, we have to wait for further confirmation. But long term, I do believe that Bitcoin will be a seven-figure crypto. That, in my opinion, is due to the increase in acceptance, increase in a view that is looking to become a global world reserve currency, but also on the ground it has actually provided real world use case, and we're seeing the network effects increase over time, and because of its resilience over the last 10 years. And all of the developments built on top of Bitcoin, such as Lightning Network, I think that's a step in the right direction. So far, the evidence is suggesting it's a tilt towards having a bias, a bullish bias long term. And with that, it does give hope to other altcoins, to other projects, especially ones that have real world use case, that they are also going to benefit from that stability. As they say, a rising tide lifts all boats. So we will see. As ever, stay connected. Thank you for joining me. And thank you for your patience. And yeah, see you guys on Friday, hopefully with no technical problems. Thank you. Have a good one.